Hey, it's Elliot. We continue our celebration of Black History tonight with our salute to black activists and a nod to social and political activist Jamal Crawford. Born and raised in the Roxbury section of Boston, Crawford's early influences emerged from the arts. At the age of 10, he was writing and performing spoken word, eventually performing with such artists as the Last Poets and Sandra Sanchez. As an activist and organizer, Jamal has received several council resolutions from the city of Boston, and in 2013 he ran for a seat on the Boston City Council from District 7. He's also the author of 2 books, including Prophecy, Exemption, and Redemption. And he was most recently part of a city task force that successfully raised the bar for police reform in the city of Boston. That's where Jamal Crawford joins us from his home tonight. Jamal, what's up?
How you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you for joining us tonight. It is, it's interesting when we talked about doing this for Black History Month and just talking about activists. We did, and I think you may have seen it. Miller Green, who was one of the original freedom riders back in 1961 or so. And he continued to do that throughout his life. He is now about 85 years old, certainly much older than both of us. But it causes me to think I wanted to do you because you've been so active for all your adult life, which is now starting to climb into those years. You started out in the arts, and then you made the transition over to political and social activism. How'd that transition occur? What caused it?
Well, number one, I'm still in the arts as well.
Oh, okay. Good point.
And it's both. To me, they were entwined. I came up at a time where I look at it as the kind of the merger of the Black arts movement and the Black power movement.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm heavily influenced by those two things. Everybody from, Amiri Baraka, who I also had the pleasure of meeting and performing with later on in life, who, himself was, a great role model in that regard,
Mm-hmm.
being someone who was, a consummate poet, but also, too, as they remember, one of the leading forces behind the original National Black Agenda Convention, that took place so many years ago. And I believe was that Gary, Indiana, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But so in politics and not politics just like electoral politics, but politics in the true sense of the word, control of your community and your destiny, being concerned about things around you, also trying to do good for your fellow man, giving back and all of those things were instilled in me at an early age, and I see them as one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
Arts serving humanity, and also to those of us in the movement also seeking to serve humanity.
Sure. When you think about some of those old school activists and what is going on today with yourself and other people in different cities, Black Lives Matter, and some of the other groups that have arisen, is there any large difference between the two? I mean, I know this conversation I've had with people before about the centralized nature of some of the activism back in the 60s and early 50s. Of course, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and Southern Leadership Conference and Operation Push, Jesse Jackson. It always came down to one person. Here we see, for the most part, I think, with some of the modern activism movements, it's very decentralized. Is there a difference, a really big difference between the two, or are they heading down the same road?
No, I would say it's a huge difference, and I think it's a good difference
Mm-hmm.
either. So it's, we went from freedom for all to a free for all, right? So
So,
some of what you're talking about in terms of the centralized, leaderships and movement and so on and so forth, it's because people had foundational principles. Okay. Back in the day, if you were with Martin Luther King, you knew that he was operating from a Christian perspective. He was operating out of a Southern church kind of Baptist perspective. And he was also coming from a nonviolent perspective.
mm-hmm.
So if you had problems with those type of things, it was probably not going to be the crowd for you. If, of course, you went into, let's say, the Nation of Islam, in order to be a member of the Nation of Islam, for anybody that has ever taken a look at the newspaper, they have a platform of what the Muslims want and what the Muslims believe, and you have to adhere to that and go through classes and a training. So that's how you get people who are like-minded and uniform. It's done in the military, it's done in major organizations and corporations, and so on and so forth. So I think that we lost a bit of that in, let me say, the quest for individuality.
Hmm.
And also, to a bit of it is also wrapped up in ego, where, uh, remember at the end of Spike Lee's movie where all the kids and everybody was like, I am Malcolm X, I
Yeah,
am
yeah,
Malcolm X, I am
yeah.
Malcolm X. Well, everybody ain't Malcolm X.
Yeah,
you
no, I
know,
don't think so.
Right, and that's the truth, because to be Malcolm X, he didn't just go to jail and he talked good. That brother read the whole dictionary. That brother did a bunch of study and was constantly, on a path of self improvement. Even so, that he wasn't afraid to admit when he himself was wrong and change his ways when his beliefs changed based on new information. So I think that we've lost a lot of that, and we've lost really this whole thing of black excellence. Everybody likes to quote once again, or evoke images of Malcolm X or Marcus Garvey, or Rosa Parks or Harriet Tubman or what have you. But in the words of the man that they call Jesus, they say, many will call me Lord, Lord, but will not do what I say. So it's easy to throw on a t-shirt and act like you're part of this grand movement and mission, but in a lot of cases, folks don't want to do what is required, which is a lot of work, a lot of elbow grease, a lot of study, and it does require uh, both humility and humanity.
Yeah, and you certainly have done the work over the years too. And yet, mentioning Malcolm X, you were instrumental, were you not, in creating a day of and correct me if I'm wrong here, a day of observation in Boston or in Massachusetts for Malcolm
The
X?
city of Boston, the
Hmm.
city of Boston.
Tell me about that.
It's now an official day
Hmm.
honoring Malcolm X. Obviously, he had a very significant time here in Boston, and so we claim him as one of our heroes, not just part of Black history nationally and globally. Because Malcolm obviously belongs to everybody, but here in Boston we have a special affair with Malcolm, and of course the Malcolm X house is still on Dale Street, Collins House, and Rodnell Collins is still there. Um, but throughout life, as it will always boggled me that like Malcolm wasn't reared, and I know because he was seen as the more controversial figure opposed to Martin Luther King.
Hmm.
Um, but I definitely to honor him, and May 19th being his birthday. Was a far better fit day because I saw a lot of observances, not only from Malcolm, but for people on the day of their death, which in many cases with our leaders was not just a regular death, the day of their assassination. And I wanted to honor the life. So I thought it was more appropriate. And so we picked a birthday. And then city councilor, now our congresswoman, Ayanna Presley, was instrumental in pushing that forth, along with then District 7 city. For those that don't know, District 7 is Roxbury, where Malcolm lived while he was here.
Hmm.
And city councilor Tito Jackson also put that forward, and it got voted unanimously by city council. So now it is an official day in the city of Boston for perpetuity.
Good for you, because and that's it's a great thing too for just in terms of historic recognition, because there are many people who don't, when you think of the life and the times and the activism of Malcolm X, you don't necessarily connect him with the city of Boston. And for much of his early adulthood, and certainly his years before, his young years before, he was a large part of Boston. This is where he grew up for the most part, and a lot of people don't realize it. So good on you. Good on you.
Yeah, a huge part of my life. I mean, I was introduced to the autobiography of Malcolm X at 10 years old.
Hmm.
I was a voracious reader. It was given to me by my cousin who noticed I was reading a bunch of stuff, fantasy and sci-fi and, comic books like a lot of kids. And he was like, hey, he knew I had a good vocabulary and, high reading comprehension and stuff. So he was like, hey, I think you could check this out. You think, you can handle that. And so he gave me that, and that really put me on a path that was way different. And at 10 years old, reading it and seeing the streets that I recognized, I actually got on my little bike with the big banana seat, and and took the journey down Humboldt Ave to try to find the house. And
Yeah.
both of the streets that were mentioned in the autobiography were Wambeck Street and Dale Street. And I
Hmm.
was up and down them things. I was on my little Encyclopedia Brown hunt trying to find the mystery. Where was Malcolm? So it was great all these years later to then, become acquainted with the family and actually be able to work and assist with Rodnell Carlin in the house and actually maintaining. And we got a group of brothers out there to do some work and help fix up the house. And, so it's a full circle feel good story.
Yeah, yeah. Full disclosure here for you watching. Jamal and I have known each other for many years. We're from the same city, Boston. Jamal, do you remember the Malcolm X Foundation? It may predate you just barely, and it was an organization back in my days of activism or radicalism. It was on Blue Hill Avenue, and it was a great source, a great resource for information and just connection with people who were in the world of activism at that point back in Boston. I think it was there till about, I want to say about 75 or so, maybe
What
72.
part of that?
Right in the middle of Blue Hill Avenue. I'm trying to remember. It's been a while for me, but just below Grove Hall. I'd say about 4 blocks below Grove Hall
Okay,
in
I
Boston.
think I know where you're talking about only because other people have told me about that thing, and I
Yeah.
think too may have had some affiliation, with some like former Black Panthers and old like Mau Mau and all that
Yeah.
type of thing when that type of activism was happening. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if they still are in existence.
No.
God bless them if they were.
Yeah.
I'm affiliated with the Malcolm X grassroots movement as well. One of my mentors, Baba Akinyele, Professor Dr. Akinyele Umoja, for those that don't know, wrote the great book, great historian, wrote the
Hmm.
great book, We Will Shoot Back, which is a history of the Mississippi freedom struggle.
Hmm. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about what you've been involved in lately. Great achievement, in fact. You're on the Boston Police Reform Task Force, and just recently, you guys made a big breakthrough in terms of police reform in the city of Boston. Tell me about that.
Right. So basically, Mayor Walsh, during this, time of so much turmoil across the country, and Boston not being immune to it, it came on his doorstep. And it was something that, because, of the times, it could no longer be ignored or put off, and it had to be dealt with like right then.
Hmm.
So Walsh put forth this task force. He appointed Wayne Budd as the chairperson of the task force. For those that don't know, Wayne Budd is a former U.S. attorney from Massachusetts, and myself, and it was 11 member body.
Hmm.
Um, I know most of your audience is not from Boston, so it's not really gonna,
No, what? Yeah,
mentioning the name.
but
A
believe
lot
us,
of
folks,
lawyers,
those were important people.
yeah, president of the NAACP, people who represented, legal institutes, G activists, members of the police itself. And so we did a rigorous look at basically all things policing in Boston. And of course, through the lens of race and racism and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
And then, of course, we also looked at best practices across the country. Now, I would say that I'm probably one of the people that was I want to say more knowledgeable. Like this is you know what I mean. Uh, I'm not a one trick pony. I got a couple more tricks. It's definitely one of the tricks. It's all policing, you know. So in this, folks such as myself and others already came armed with their own expertise and specialties.
Mm-hmm.
Mine happens to be mainly around police brutality and the killing of civilians, right? And also too, police misconduct. So I worked on the subcommittees that formed what became known as the OPAT, the
Mm-hmm.
Office of Police Accountability and Transparency. Created the first ever civilian review board here in Boston. Um, Worked a lot on accountability and transparency in record because Boston police has a major problem in terms of responding to media requests or regular requests for information and so on and so forth. So we did a lot around that to create a series of strict timelines. We created a pathway for young students who grew up in Boston and go to school in Boston or a part of Metco or a charter school or what have you, so that they could have a better path to employment if they so choose in the Boston Police Department. Um, and so, there was a lot of good stuff there. I think real, well thought out stuff, very
Mm-hmm.
thoughtful stuff.
Yeah.
And it's online. If anybody's interested, you could look up City of Boston, police reform. The whole final recommendations are there, and they are in the process of implementing them incrementally now. So about half of it is done, and then the rest is coming.
And this was the picture we were showing it this earlier. The picture of Mayor Marty Walsh signing, I guess, the executive orders. A couple
Yeah,
of executive orders, getting some of the things that you guys implemented in place. I guess when was this
right.
back
And
in?
now that's actually interesting too, because what happened is city council got involved, and rather than have an executive order, which, as you know, can get changed by the next executive, um, folks thought it was more prudent to actually put those into city law. And so, in order for that to happen, it had to go before city council and da 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 da. So we went back and forth and made some further amendments and so on and so forth. And then what ultimately happened, maybe a couple after this picture, was that it actually was then put into city law. So it didn't exist anymore as an executive order. It was amended and then put into city law. So
Mm-hmm.
now, for instance, the next mayor can now not change it.
Yeah. Speaking of the next mayor, thank you for that great segue there. Speaking of the next mayor, of course, Marty Walsh, as many people may know, he's been tapped for labor secretary for the new Biden administration. I think they're still trying to do confirmation. Some preliminary things have been done. But in his place, Kim Janey from City Council, in fact, she is representing the district that you ran for office for city council for. She is the interim mayor or she's not personal
Acting mayor.
acting mayor. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your sense of what happens now? On the surface, it would seem putting Kim Janey, a lifelong Boston resident. In fact, it's funny. I had a chance to go back and look at her pedigree. I'm sorry to hear that her father just passed a few years ago, Clifford, who was down here in Washington, D.C. He was the superintendent of public schools, Washington, D.C. for many years, a very well-respected man in his field and in politics. But she came up right in the same neighborhood. She rose to the city council, made history there, now getting ready to make history in the mayor's office. Does that transfer of power upset the apple cart for what you guys are trying to do, or do you think actually this is a good thing and you could do more with her in office?
Well, acting mayor is going to be limited in their role in terms of ability to initiate new. It's a lot of the legals right now are really going over that now about what the powers of an actual acting mayor can be.
Hmm.
So that will be for the eggheads to figure that out. Certainly, she will be the acting mayor. The reason that she got to that position, because just like continuity of government, If something happens to the president, then it's the vice president. Well, in Boston, if the mayor, something happens to the mayor, even if he like goes under surgery, whatever, and
Sure.
is out of it, then the city council president then steps in and becomes acting mayor.
Mm-hmm.
And then oftentimes when they go on vacation, pardon me for a sec, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. In fact, I got a bit of banging going on up in here somewhere, so
Okay.
that's our moment out of pocket right there. So go ahead. You were saying.
So, her being the city council president, she came on as city councilor of District 7, which, as
Mm-hmm.
we just talking about, District 7, Roxbury, where Malcolm X is from, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So she's the district councilor for 7. They have a rotational system where, any person who may want to go for the city council presidency. So she went for it the last time. She became city council president. And it just so happens that she is the city council president at the time when Mayor Walsh is now tapped to go do that. So then,
Very fortunate, fortuitous, as we say.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So then she automatically ascends to that. So now the only downside to that is, while we have this history making moment, first black person, first woman, first black woman, right? It doesn't have the same, it doesn't resonate the same as a full-blooded win in an election, right? So already there are a lot of people who are maybe trying to chip away or undermine at that authority based on that. Acting mayor certainly will not have the power to hire or fire, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
but there's going to be a massive amount of there'll be a great exodus when Marty leaves, with a lot of people who will be leaving as well,
Oh yeah,
and
that's
they'll
right.
fill those positions.
Yeah.
So there'll be some leeway there. There'll be some leeway around the budget. So I hope and I expect her to do the right thing. She has been vocal about police and police reform. So I hope she does the right thing, and I wish her luck.
Yeah. And I know you'll be keeping an eye on her, along with a lot of other people.
And I was going to say too, I mean, wish her luck, because this is Boston. She's
Yeah.
gonna need it.
Right? Tell me about it. What? Still about 12%, only 12, maybe 14% of the overall population in the city of Boston is black.
Yeah, black. And then so now, what they talk about with, it is now a majority minority, which of course I hate the term minority,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
but a majority minority city. And but that, that we have a lot of immigrants, we have a lot of, Asian population, a lot of, a lot of people that come here to go to school. So the numbers are a little bit more deceptive. And if anybody is ever interested in seeing, studies that have disparity studies on race and wealth, the wealth gap here in Boston, average white family is worth about $256,000. Average black family is worth $8.
Really? Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
yes,
Yeah.
$8, as in can't even get you a small cheese pizza.
That's a damn shame. What do you want to what do you think about when you think of the future, the immediate future? What are the things you'd like to get done? What are the things most important on your list as an activist?
Well, unfortunately, I have kind of a bleak outlook on the future. I've read too many books of wisdom, spiritual books, and nobody says that it's going to be good in the end. So nobody says that. They
Yeah.
say it's going to be bad. So for me, it's just we do what we can with what we got while we're here. Try the best people we can. Try to affect, life for the better for the people around us and for our community and whatnot. And do the best we can while we can. Because at the end of the day, I explain this to a lot of the young people I've worked with. We're tackling issues that in many cases are unsolvable. Okay, right here on the lower part, you had, that I created the Feed the Hood program, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that was good. And I helped some people. We delivered over in 3 years over like 150, 200 tons of food.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, great, wonderful. Did I put a dent in hunger?
Mm.
So at some point, you'd be egotistical to think that you're, doing something. Or if you're a person that works with AIDS patients or whatever or whatnot, until we got a cure, right? Cancer, or you working in, against domestic violence. I mean, a lot of these, or working against violence, regular violence,
Sure.
right? These are a lot of big issues that I don't think we're going to see the end to in our lifetime. We may have a better shot with some of the diseases like cancer and AIDS that might
Mm-hmm.
actually be fixed via science.
Mm-hmm.
But stuff like the human condition problems, man's inhumanity to man, and all the violence that we enact with each other, like street violence or violence against women and children, sexual violence. I don't know.
Dude, I will tell you, I've known you for a number of years. You've always been out there trying to help people. I would have to disagree with you on some level because I always feel, yeah, I get what you're saying. You want to be able to completely categorically solve those big issues, but going back to that the hunger program, if you fed one person two, let's make it two, and we know you did, you made a difference. At least you make a difference in that person's life. And that person, if they're really thinking about it, is going to pay it forward. It is always worth it when you help one people, and you've helped many. So if you won't give yourself credit, I will. And I always try to do that,
And I appreciate it, and I don't want to belittle it because I want people to duplicate it. But even let me give you this example.
mm-hmm.
When we were feeding people like that, and we on the back of the truck, and handing stuff out. When you run out, there's still more people there.
Yeah.
So it's always like, I'm not, obviously I don't feel like a bad guy because I did that, right? I feel good about it. It gave me the warm and fuzzies in my heart. And certainly a lot of those people showed tremendous gratitude. I still see people like, like I said, we did it for 3 years, and that was many years ago now. I still drive around or walk around, and people, hey, what's up? I still see people. So, definitely it's feeling, and definitely we serve some people. But what I'm saying is, like, it's that desire to write, what Harriet Tubman say, I freed 1,000 slaves, but I could have freed 1,000 more
Yeah.
if they would have they were slaves. So it's always that thirst to, you save one life, but you're like, man, I could have saved two.
I
So
know.
it's always that thought.
Yeah. Well, you've saved at least two. You probably saved more than 200. You're a hero, dude. Believe me. So you just keep on doing what you're doing. And that's why I wanted to bring you out here today, just so other people could meet you and kind of share in what you've done. And hopefully that's inspired younger people to do what you've done all your adult life. Jamarhl Crawford, thank you for talking with us
Thank you.
this evening. It's always a
Yeah, thanks for
pleasure.
having me.
Always
Absolutely.
a pleasure, and we
Yes,
will
sir.
do this again. Thank you, and keep on the road. Keep out there and keep strong and keep doing it for everyone, dude.
Have a great
All right, thank you. Have a great evening. And
All
thank you
right.
for
Peace.
thank you for joining us this evening. Next week, right here at 7 on Thursday, continuing our Black History Month series, we have something interesting coming up. The most people believe that Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. A lot of people believe that's not true, and that a black man, Lewis Latimer, should be given credit for it. We'll talk with an author, Stephen Mitnick, an author of a brand new book called Lewis Latimer. If you don't know about Lewis Latimer, you really should. You'll find out about it next week and what he had to do with the light bulb, up to including maybe even inventing it. We'll talk more about that. His book is called Lewis Latimer, The First Hidden Figure. That's Steve Mitnick next week right here on Now. Till then, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our Facebook page, and be sure and come back next week right here at 7 p.m. on Thursday for more of Now. Till then, take care. Peace.